Hello, I'm Josh, CTO at EdTech company Genio and software consultant of almost 20 years. And this is Offscript, a podcast where me and James share unfiltered conversations on building, leading and learning in today's tech world. And I'm joined by James, who runs a digital consultancy making beautiful software with a focus on AI and IoT. And today we're joined by Elysha Paige, who reached out to me a little while ago to talk about how you show up online. It felt like a really good podcast episode for us to dig into. So, Elysha, I've already buggered it up. I'm so sorry. I've already said your name wrong about 5 times. I'm so sorry. But if you don't mind introducing yourself a bit more, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Josh. And yeah, no problem. I'm Elysha, and I'm a recruiter, and I recruit across the tech for good and charity sector. So, connecting digital and tech talent with charities and tech for good organisations, and also leadership and board recruitment in the charity sector as well. But quite a squiggly career path. Started out as an agency recruiter, like lots of people, really didn't like it. Moved to in-house, decided I wanted to work in tech. So I was a business analyst for a couple of years on really exciting back-end retail integration projects. And then I did my master's in gender studies, gender sexuality and culture. So yeah, all of these random bits. I also have a drama degree. Everything was like, what am I doing? It doesn't really fit. I then moved into the charity sector and worked with a charity called Bloody Good Period. I initially ran their employers program. So I spent a lot of time working with employers to help them support people with their periods, their menstrual health, menopause in the workplace, and to help people be able to talk about periods and menopause in the workplace. And I reached out to Josh shortly after launching my recruitment business because I was showing up on LinkedIn. It was kind of a weird thing. I'd been talking really openly about periods on LinkedIn, even showing pictures of like my period products on LinkedIn didn't faze me. But then when it came to having my own brand and my own voice and my own company, essentially, I just found LinkedIn really awkward. I didn't know what to post. I felt really anxious about judgment of what to put out on LinkedIn. I think it also was the same time as everyone started using ChatGPT for LinkedIn posts as well. So it was just a bit of a weird transition. And I saw what Josh was sharing on LinkedIn. I heard about the podcast and bits really resonated with me. And that's a quick snapshot of my whole career and how I got here today.
Amazing, thank you. And also congratulations. I think it's 1 year of Radiate hiring, right? I think that's a year in.
Yeah, a year in, which is cool. Everyone said the first year is the hardest, and if you can make it through that, you'll be okay. And I think bang on a year, I'm like, actually, this is okay. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I think it's always like if you can convince the clients to stay with you for a year, it's like, there's a sustainable business here. It's all good. Nice. Yes. So yeah, we started chatting about like how you show up authentically. I think LinkedIn's a weird space, I think, at the moment. It has been for a long time, but I think as a lot of the other sort of social networks have gone their interesting ways, let's just say, I think most people have actually moved to LinkedIn for a network for all sorts of different reasons. It's become less of a place just for work, and people share a lot of stuff on there, which is good and bad. And I think it's interesting to figure out how you sort of stand out through the noise. The signal to noise ratio is quite high, but also how you don't, as you said, just sort of fall into the trap of just generating those sort of AI like thought pieces that blend in with the rest of the scenery around there. So how have you found that? Because I know you mentioned you've been on a bit of a journey with authoring content and trying to figure out how to position yourself.
Yeah, so I think I'm definitely like at the start of the transition, I think. So I did fall into the trap of, post 3 times a week, use ChatGPT to help you. But then I do think I understand for, small teams, small business owners, like being able to do that and having that visibility, the data is there to show that it does then turn into, revenue or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So I say fall in the trap, but then also I want to be conscious that I'm able to talk about that now, looking back with hindsight, and it makes me cringe a bit, but actually it did serve a purpose at the time. But yeah, I'm definitely at the start of a transition where I've actually just I've completely stopped the post 3 times a week on LinkedIn, and actually just trying to post like when things feel authentic and I want to share. And I think my goal now, maybe in another 6 months or a year, I'll regret doing this. But I think my goal now is like post things that don't make me cringe, if that makes sense. But then some people talk about how, cringing at your own content is like the price of entry or things like that. But I just think I just don't want to be compensating, maybe a bit too far, but like my soul to just like show up in a way that doesn't feel authentic. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. I've kind of been posting work stuff on LinkedIn with a picture of like stuff from my garden, because I just feel like that's like a nice balance for me. But yeah, still figuring it out. But I think the first thing is getting rid of the routine. And then yeah, just trying to like test out bits of content, or not even really tracking it, just kind of putting stuff out there that I feel resonates with me at the time. Yeah, but I'm definitely not a marketing strategist, as you can tell. So probably not sure if this is going to be the right thing to do. Yeah.
I think there's always an element of cringe when you're posting on LinkedIn, though. Like, I think it feels unnatural. It's sort of not a natural space where, like, Twitter back in the day had its own style and it was very tech leaning, and you knew you could just say nerdy things and it'd be fine. Whereas LinkedIn just feels everyone's got a very different way of talking on it. And going to that AI slop comment, I think we've been very careful at Parallax to not overly use AI to write, because I think, trust is earned in inches and lost in yards, isn't it? So like, as soon as people figure out, oh, this is just AI slop, then you're going to lose the trust, aren't you? And for my own personal LinkedIn, I've really struggled recently because some of the work I'm not allowed to talk about, but also like I've just fallen out of the habit. But yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I mean, my old trick was to like try and do something interesting and then talk about it. But if I'm under NDA, it gets a bit harder.
Yeah, I think it's a weird one, isn't it? Like, I remember when I started posting more regularly on LinkedIn, and I've been the same as you, just like busy and probably not been able to do as frequently as I'd liked. But like, when you have to create a sort of post that advertises yourself in that way, I said to you privately, I was like, I think I've become the baddie now. Like, I've realized that I've basically started being one of those people that I hated on LinkedIn. And you like still trying to find that persona that you're like comfortable with, but also, has to like hit the mark to, as you said, like attract the interest, attract the leads, attract the business, and just like represent yourself properly, right? And it's always a balance.
Yeah, I like the trick with the garden picture, because that's bringing some personal stuff in there as well. And also the algorithm just loves photos, doesn't it? So yeah, nice trick. Yeah. Has it got any other tips for us?
Think so yeah, I mean, again, I'm definitely not an expert. I think so what I hear is, yeah, the algorithm likes pictures. I think it does specifically like pictures of faces. But again, I start to feel a bit weird about that. Like, there's only so many times I can stand and just be like, hey, like, and then talk about something else. Yeah. And then I know there's weird, I think it's interesting how there's like weird habits on LinkedIn as well that I don't know if anybody actually knows if they work. So I don't know if you've seen, like, if you're posting an external link, people say link in the comments. But then there's loads of like, does that actually impact? Because the theory is that if you put the link in the post, then LinkedIn won't push it. But I'm not sure if that actually works. So I think that's quite interesting as well, is like, I don't know how many people actually know how the algorithm works and what gets pushed and what doesn't. But you see these like patterns emerge that people just tend to copy. I don't know who started them, but it's interesting. And I feel like it just, unfortunately, it really gets in the way of authentic conversation and connection, which is what maybe LinkedIn should be for, or maybe it's something that we need in the professional world, that we're just not getting, and we're trying to force LinkedIn. I think the thing that I really don't like is, and I've done it myself at the beginning, is not the AI generated like posts, it's the AI comments. Like, they're the worst, like commenting on other people's posts with AI. It's not, it's really annoying. It may as well just not be there. But I understand why people do it. So yeah, I think there needs to be something else. And I know there are other things and like other ways that people connect. And And I feel like there's maybe a move to more in-person stuff potentially. I don't know, are you part of communities online that are not on LinkedIn but are about like work, or do you find that all happens in person or just with your own friends?
Yeah, I mean, I run Applied AI, which is an in-person event, and that, is almost exclusively in person. All the conversations very much around, how to use AI in everyday life, and it's nice to have that face-to-face time with people rather than just reading their AI generated. I replaced my whole team with a chatbot type post. I think specifically on that linking comment, we saw that with the conference, didn't we, Josh? If we post a link to buy tickets, zero, nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't get any reach whatsoever. But a picture of us struggling to load gear into the venue, loads of likes and interactions. So very, very different. Yeah.
The weird thing is like, so that's the annoying thing, right? So like you might get the better reach with that link in the comment thing, but then no one will click it. So the reach will be there, but then no one will follow through to like buying a ticket or looking at a ticket. And it's like, yeah, I do like your potato photos because I think that's a good idea of like, and also I guess the algo could think it's a face, which might be true. So maybe that sort of hacks it. But I think you've got what you use there is like the private thing as like a device to not only attract more interest, but to make you more comfortable in posting as well. And I did the same with like a cooking blog during lockdown, like everyone started doing random hobbies and stuff. So I was like, I'm going to start a blog. And it was just my way of posting like more informal content that didn't really mean a lot to me. Like it was really easy and cheap to do. But it got that regularity, that muscle memory of posting. And then people found out more about me through what I was posting. And I think I saw what you're doing with that sort of garden stuff. And it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Maybe the algorithm does think the potatoes are a fake. You'll just see me post like different shaped potatoes now, like on every post.
A/B test all the photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I wonder, something I do think about though is like that authenticity piece. So if we think the algorithm likes faces, it's kind of like this weird, like dystopian situation where like the algorithm wants authenticity apparently, but it wants authenticity in the way that it sees or deems authenticity. And then maybe I'm just wondering like why there is this resistance from people, and also like a bigger human question. But I wonder why. We'll talk about online, but maybe in the workplace as well. Like, why is it important why is authenticity important to people in the workplace, and maybe to others not? Because I think there's two quite like schools of thought where, we've been through this phase, I think, of really talking about, you should be able to bring your whole self to work. But then actually, should everyone, do you want to do that? Or are there drawbacks to that? Like, is it okay to have, elements that you keep away from the workplace, for example? Yeah, big questions, but I don't know what your thoughts are on those.
Yeah, I think, I guess this is the true definition of like authenticity, right? It's like, I think me and James certainly are very similar in terms of the fact that what you see at work is basically what you see outside of work in the pub or anywhere else, really. And I think for me, that's really important. I think like consistency of how you behave is actually really important, especially in leadership. Like you don't want someone with this, this like sort of mask on at work that are pretending to be someone else, and then you sort of leave work and you find out they're slightly different, or they are cool, or they're not so rigid with all these things. And I don't know, for me, like that's always translated to how I write and what I write about. And I think that probably includes oversharing sometimes, like in other people's view, where I'll talk about things from my life that probably are very personal to me. But like I think that's really important for me, that I like publish those things consistently. Like people might read something and then I'll speak about it in person and vice versa. And I think, I find it quite unsettling when you have you see someone who's got a very different persona, especially in a leadership position that is not the same outside of that space. It just feels weird to me.
Yeah, sometimes you see people writing extremely formal sounding emails and then you meet them and you're like, they're not like that at all. Whereas I've always written very informal, to the point emails. And I think now I'm starting to feel I can tell when someone's AI generated an email that's sent to me. And if my colleagues do it, they get called out. So, but yeah, I think human communication is that one thing that shouldn't be touched by AI, and you should bring yourself, and you should, post a silly GIF or whatever, and like, yeah, I think just be who you would be normally. I think, yeah, work is not just about getting the job done. It's about like building trust, communicating with people, and if you just suddenly go all wooden and professional, that's actually going to make it much harder.
Yeah, I think so. I think the problem is there's almost the problem with too much polish, right? It's almost like the AI generated art. It's like it's either too perfect or not organic enough for it to be like true art. And I think that's sort of also true in like, written and spoken like language when it's AI generated. Like it needs to have, warts and all almost to like make it feel authentic, to be true. And I think, as you said, like if you get an email and there's no grammatical errors, there's perfect like punctuation and everything, and the structure of it is very formulaic, then you're like, this probably wasn't written by a human, and I don't like that. It doesn't feel like I'm actually talking to the person. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, and potentially a bit of a tangent, but this is going to make the job market very difficult for people as well, because now everyone thinks, it's a numbers game. I've got to get 100 CVs out there with a cover letter that I've used ChatGPT to generate automatically. And then they wonder why they don't get any response. And it's because the employers are absolutely swamps in AI generated cover letters, and they can't tell anyone apart. So like, it's going to be really tricky both sides to sort of get past this little hurdle, isn't it? Where the cost of being authentic is now quite high because the expectation of the amount of CVs you could send out has gone up. So it's going to be really tricky for people to cut through it. And you do see people like sending letters or dropping by the office and doing things like that, which is nice, but also adds additional burden on people trying to hire as well.
Yeah, it's really tough because I'd say 99%, maybe 95% of people are using AI for their job applications. But actually a lot of recruiters, especially in like smaller organizations, are not using AI screening tools because they're just not, in my opinion, where they need to be. These are really serious decisions about people's careers. And when you don't have the view of how those decisions are being made, I personally don't feel like you can rely on an AI tool to do the screening. And also a lot of them, legally, the responsibility for the decision making still sits with the people. So it's quite a lot to put your trust in an AI tool to do that. So yeah, it is definitely really challenging at the moment because recruiters are being inundated with so many applications that look exactly the same, but in a lot of cases they are still being reviewed manually, or in many cases they're still being reviewed manually. So yeah, it is a challenging time. But what I can say is, as a recruiter, when you get an application that you can tell isn't AI, it's like amazing. You're like, oh, I'm really going to enjoy reading this. But then it might not even be right or good, and you still have to meet the criteria. But there's definitely like a bit of relief when you get that. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it evens out. Whether people will stop using AI for their applications, whether AI screening will get to a place where people can really trust it. I don't know. Sorry, we have definitely gone off on a tangent, but
I think it's a really interesting point because it's like actually authenticity is a differentiator in that scenario, because essentially you are like, if you show more about yourself and your personality and like who you are in, not just those applications but also in LinkedIn and other spaces online, like no one just looks at a CV and then doesn't research the candidate before they have an interview. So like I think it's really important that you represent yourself like as consistently across those networks. And yeah, I guess that's a thing that's hopefully not going to go away. But I think, yeah, not everyone puts themselves out there in that way, right? It's like a lot of people don't post on LinkedIn much at all in that way. I was going to ask just about the work you did at Bloody Good Period, because obviously like the topic itself, the theme sort of is already starting off in a sort of vulnerable space, I guess. And it's, I think that's a very different context to a different industry or sector. And I think Like, did you find in the role that you performed there that you felt you were able to act more authentically because it was closely tied to something, first of all, very personal, I guess, but also just like the taboo was already out there due to the nature of the business versus maybe someone who worked in like law or something?
Yeah, I think yeah, the brand and the name really gave you that you know, loud permission to talk about it. And also like it's literally the job as well. So I definitely think that helped. And then I think it's interesting with you know, it being something to connect to, because I find with lots of these things, once you get into them and you hear about the range of experiences and all the different stories that are there, there is also a bit of, you know, I have my experience with periods, but that's completely different to loads of other people. So there's also a bit of I guess awareness and like responsibility there as well, that there is a boundary between you talking about your own experience in a space where you are there to you know, raise awareness for a certain cause or support people who are going through completely different things to you, even though it's tied to the same thing, if that makes sense. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. We took the work into spaces where, you know, people didn't feel comfortable saying the word period was like really scary. So it was a lot of fun. And we learned a lot doing that work. And I think we did have, you know, a really great impact with some of the employers that we worked with as well. Because when you talk about a taboo topic and you open up that conversation, it then leads on to opening up about, you know, other things and other conversations. So you're kind of going, some people might say as taboo as you can go, to then, you know, allow people to, you know, connect authentically over something, like you said, that is a bit vulnerable potentially. So yeah, definitely really impactful work. But I definitely think just being loud with the branding like really gave you that permission to do that as well. And you know, a lot of people didn't like the branding as well. You know, it's controversial. So yeah, I think, but um being, you know, committed to that, I think really helped the charity have the impact that it did in its time.
Mm. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because like I guess that already acts as the equalizer for you to be able to speak in that way. But I think we often, you know, in like leadership and when you're trying to craft like a high performing team that's sustainable, you know, psychological safety is banded around all the time around like making sure people feel like they have the space and the autonomy to do the work in the way that makes sense to them. And I think those things are quite closely connected actually. And I think it's really interesting when you see how teams talk like to each other and how they talk. Like, you know, often we'll have like a squad that's working on like some software or something. And it's like the way in which they have established that culture and how they communicate is actually really interesting. Most of the time it's very informal and it's very like high trust and everyone sort of knows the rhythm of each other and so on and so on. So yeah, I think it's sort of interesting to see where authenticity shows up in those scenarios. And usually I think it's the only way to do it. Like, you know, you can't really keep quiet in that scenario. You've got to contribute somehow to those, you know, those things. I guess I wanted to just touch on, I guess the cost, we sort of touched on it earlier, but like the cost of authenticity. So, it's very easy for me to sit here as a white guy in tech talking about how I feel reasonably comfortable being authentic online in person without the concern or the big concern that it's going to cost me much in my career. Like I feel reasonably comfortable that it's not going to be used against me in that way, but that's not the same for everyone. And also I'm not saying that's true either. I'm like, maybe it does cost me in ways that I'm unaware of. But you know, there's definitely, you know, different scenarios where it would affect you more, even just in terms of like seniority, gender, race, financial position, all those different factors can play into this. How do you think? Do you think that's a correct statement? Do you agree that it is different for different people, or do you think actually everyone has a license to behave the same way authentically?
Yeah, I definitely think it's massively different for different people, and I think there's loads of there's loads of factors that can impact how comfortable people feel showing up as themselves in certain spaces. And I think LinkedIn, it's hard. I think LinkedIn, we've been talking about LinkedIn a lot, but I do still think LinkedIn does feel like a white male professional space. But having said that, obviously you craft your own network, and I recruit in the tech sector. So maybe that's why it feels that way. But yeah, absolutely. There are so many different factors. And I think there are lots of factors that maybe people wouldn't expect or think about as well. One thing that I've been really reflecting on is, I think, or one thing that I've, realized, I think, is some moving away from home, being in a new space, being around people that maybe you haven't been around, your whole life. So if we're talking maybe like, like financial differences, being in professional spaces if you've never been in professional spaces, I think that can really cause you to be quite hyper vigilant in the workplace and in work settings. One thing that I've noticed since I've moved closer to home is that because I have that stronger sense of belonging and authenticity in my home life now, just because of where I'm geographically located and around the people that I am, I've been much less concerned about it in the workplace, because I'm kind of getting that grounding and that stabilization outside of work, so that I can come to work and I feel a bit more confident and like content in myself, if that makes sense. And I think, it's very complex and different people experience it differently, but I think people having a sense of community, some people get that in the workplace, and I think that's amazing, but for some people that's not possible, especially if you're from a marginalized identity. So if I think there's something about making sure there is that sense of community and belonging somewhere in your life, if you can get that. And I think that then transcends into how you feel and how you show up in the workplace. Some of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's James mentioned earlier Twitter, and Twitter used to be like one of those online spaces for me and many others where it felt like you could just sling some stuff out there and not be judged by it, and probably have a good conversation around it. I remember a few years ago sharing like a post on miscarriage from me, and I remember feeling really comfortable posting that there, because I was like, I think guys need to talk about this more. It's a really important topic. I feel really comfortable posting it on here. On reflection, would I have at the time posted that on LinkedIn? Probably not. It didn't feel like the right place. It probably still doesn't feel like the right place to talk about that now. So it's like, well, where do you, like, if you're going to be authentic online, where do you post it if it's not the places that you used to have as like a safe haven, I guess? And yeah, it's probably the same in the workplace. As you said, it probably takes some time to, like, you either need to feel super comfortable and safe in your home life to be able to do that at work, or vice versa. And yeah, there's lots of different conditions, I guess, that create that environment.
Yeah, I think Elon Musk's ruined it for everyone. But I think, when growing up, obviously there was lots of online spaces where, like, internet relay chat and things like that, where I was learning the trade and chatting to lots of other nerds effectively online. And yeah, that's kind of morphed. And when Twitter came out, that was like the thing, wasn't it? But I feel like we are missing a space, potentially. I think obviously Instagram is now just algorithmically insane, in my opinion. Like, it's gone down the TikTok routes. People just get sucked into this never-ending scrolling trap. It's not really about connection anymore, or your friends' photos. It's gone to evolved into something else, hasn't it? So I think social media sold us the dream of that personal connection, and then they've done the whole bait and switch, haven't they? We're just eyeballs for advertisers now. So yeah, I think it's tricky. I think Meta and others have got a lot of work to do to fix what they've ruined, basically.
Yeah.
Do you think there's space for a new? I know there are some like happening, which look really interesting. How big of a challenge do you think it is to take on LinkedIn, for example?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, Josh, you've been talking about this for a while, but Blue Sky looked like it was going to get there, but it just didn't quite break through, did it?
It's quite an active community there, but it's like, it is a bit of an echo chamber in other ways as well. Like, again, as you said, Elysha, it's like, is it my network curation that's created that echo chamber, or is it actually like just the people that are there, and that's hard to move away from? I've talked a lot recently about how actually I believe the the rise of a decentralized version of this is more important, which is like your own personal space, your own website. Like invest in that space for you to own and to craft in the way that you want to. And I've done that more recently, and I'm really enjoying having that space to like publish from, that I'm really confident is like just mine. But there's no community there because it's just me like putting things out there. And I think, yeah, we do need a new Twitter that really is like fostering that sense of community and safety. But I actually wonder whether, the ship sailed a little bit with where we're up to at the moment, with social networks, with how people are feeling in society. Like I think this is a really complicated subject, right? Because it's like, it's not just that you need a technical solution for where people hang out. It's actually reflective of what's going on in society and the world more generally. Like, we have instant access on these networks to some of the most horrific things going on in the world immediately, and you can't unsee a lot of that stuff. So at the same time, you don't want to be like, I feel like being really vulnerable now because I've just seen the worst thing that's happening possibly in the world, and my thing feels insignificant now. It feels like irrelevant to talk about in that space.
Really tricky, isn't it?
So, I guess for you, the sort of pivot from tech consulting into like the charity sector, or into that space, and then sort of building your own brand. Like, how have you find those transitions between those different roles?
Yeah. So, so I think I ended up working in tech consulting because I ended up being a tech recruiter, and I hadn't really seen like career paths in that way. So as a tech recruiter, I was like, whoa, look how much money these people are making. And, there's a really like stable career path. So I just it was the only thing it's the first thing I was exposed to. So that was something that really drew me to that route. I also think there was maybe a bit of, me with my drama degree, speaking to lots of like who I interpreted as like really clever tech people. I was like, I want to be able to do that. And then I was in the role for 2 years, and it was actually at the start of lockdown, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I integrating retail back office like programs? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Looking back, like I actually loved that time, and I think this is maybe where, even though maybe I didn't belong from a I don't know, maybe it wasn't the right job for me in terms of, it was I think I did well at it, but it was hard for me. It didn't like utilize my best skills. So it felt really taxing, but I had a great team around me. So I think that's really interesting from a belonging point of view as well. And like one of the best teams that I've worked with still to this day, I'd say. And then, pivot into the charity sector, talking about periods a lot. I think I really carried with me that analytical mindset, which I think I didn't have as much before. When you're deep in, big expensive integration programs, like you see the impact of like one tiny mistake, and what that can have. So I think I've really carried that through. But I definitely feel like the work that I was doing at Bloody Good Period was a lot more aligned to my skill set, until I started going into a leadership position, if I'm being honest. And that's been a really big learning for me. Maybe it's something that I'll come back to in the future, but I realized how hard leadership can be, and actually, how much support, and I think like how much you need to be equipped to be a great effective leader, and also not like lose yourself as well at the same time, which was part of the reason that I made a pivot to have my own work by myself for a bit, essentially, and build on my competencies and my skills, before maybe I will step back into a leadership position in the future, but it's not kind of on the cards at the moment. But yeah, I think they've been very different pivots, but what I like about that is I've become very much a generalist, and I've really learned different things in detail that I've been able to carry along with me. And I think along the way, like learning about myself and what I want my career to look like as well, where my strengths are, where I want my strengths to be, where they're not, and maybe where actually I don't want to or need to invest time. So yeah, it's been quite a jumbled route, but now it makes sense because the work I do now brings together all the work that I've done. So yeah, I've kind of made it make sense for me.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's interesting. Like, I think you learn a lot about yourself as a leader. Like, when you're in a leadership position, it really tests you to question your authenticity. It tests you to question like a lot of how you deal with things and who you are. And like, there's many moments where you're like, I don't know if this is for me. Like, those lessons of resilience sometimes have a real cost on you, I think. But it does make you really consider how you present yourself, how you communicate, how you lead, and how you build trust, and all those sort of things. So yeah, I think all those skills are transferable though. Like, they're not just leadership skills. I think they're generally just like skills for working in the modern world, right? And I think, yeah, I don't think leaders are any different to like IC level, tech folk who are trying to deliver something within a team. I just find it quite interesting how like all these soft skills are sort of acquired in many different ways. I think leadership certainly puts a lot of those like skills to the test very immediately all at once, because you're judged for like your performance in specific moments, and people don't forget those like performances if you're not very good in them. So it's quite interesting when you're like, yeah, having to deal with sticky situations to figure out how you do authentically work through that sort of stuff. Like, are you a leader that just talks about values but doesn't live them and just like sort of spouts bullshit around them, or do you actually like live and breathe them, and can people feel that? I know we talk about that quite a bit, James, mostly in private, to be honest, in the pub. But yeah. Cool. So in terms of authenticity and the topic, is there anything else you think we haven't explored around this? There's probably a couple of the questions I can think of, but
Yeah, let me think. Yeah, we talked about why it's important, didn't we?
well, I guess to frame it another way, like if you've been on quite a career path yourself, like what would you give early you as advice? Like, what would you try to, if you were to sort of walk this path again and you were to try and do the same again, like what would your advice be to yourself? Like, what do you think you've learned through the process?
So I think it's definitely, don't underestimate what you're already good at, and you can get very, very far by focusing on those. And yeah, because I think for a long time I was obsessed with getting good at things that I'm not good at, which I think has served me very well. And it's made me maybe a bit more of a well-rounded person, a bit more self-aware. But I think it's really taxing to do that to yourself, and maybe not necessary all the time as well. So yeah, I think don't underestimate the value that you can already bring, as someone just entering the workplace. Think about what your strengths are there, and making sure they're aligned with what you're interested in, and then like really focusing there. That would definitely be my advice, I think, looking back.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that.
Good advice for anyone at any point in their career, really. Yeah, like that.
Yeah. What about you, James? Like, do you have, like, if I was to say the same to you?
So I think because I was quite introverted and very focused on just development, I think it would have been to get out there a bit more and talk to people. Because I think now, especially with AI, I think like actually face to face is going to be more important. And content like this, like talking to people online through video rather than AI generated stuff. I think if I could go back in time, I would probably started the public speaking thing a lot earlier. But I got my first speaking gig at Josh's event, actually, maybe 16 years ago. But yeah, no, I think that was a good push, and it definitely changes your perspective on things.
Feel old now. Thanks for that.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think there's like also like this like external pressure that doesn't really come from anywhere other than your own head, where you feel like you have to put out a certain type of content or be a certain way. And I think actually there's a reality where if you ignore everything else that's on LinkedIn, for example, and just post the stuff that you think is relevant and right and of your own experience, I think that goes an awfully long way. And I think actually you don't need to look at other people for a benchmark of how you should behave in those scenarios. I think actually ignoring a lot of that and trying to figure out what your own voice looks like is really important.
What would your advice be, Josh? Was that it?
Probably more like that. I think like it's the classic one, isn't it? But it's like, actually don't try and copy other people. Don't try and follow other people, and try and figure out like what your own way is of doing something. I think as I was sort of going through different IC roles and then into leadership, I was looking at how other leaders behave and it's sort of like what you're saying, like you see other leaders acting really professionally and whatever the hell that is, and like communicating really formally. And you're like, oh, that's what a leader is. I must act that way. I must behave that way and not show myself. And actually, as I've gone through, I've been like, that's not right. Like I should just be the same person. Like I shouldn't try to behave any differently. And if anything, I should accentuate some of those characteristics of me to make people realize that like leaders are the same humans like anyone else, and they fuck up and they're still learning it all on the job, and like there's no clear route through this stuff. And yeah, I think that's probably, but it's so easy to give advice when you've been through it. It's not easy when you're starting out and someone's like, just be yourself, it'll be fine. Like that's not very helpful, is it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's something about, being in a leadership position when you're young. I think I'm someone who I do really value like experience that's gathered like over years and over ages. And I think it's so weird. It doesn't make sense to me how we can be like ageist in our society, because like we're all going to get there, hopefully. Like that's, so I find that really, really bizarre. I think there is also an element of, that cliche of like using your 20s to find yourself, but that is kind of like how life works for some people. And maybe it is that actually, over that time, that does help you feel more confident in a leadership position. So I think when you're a young leader, sometimes, obviously not everyone, there are amazing young leaders. But I do think that it takes quite a lot of a person to be ready for a leadership position at a younger age. And there are things that we kind of naturally go through in life as we grow up and we age and we go through the years, that I think can really help stabilize us to be in a leadership position and really build that resilience that you talked about as well.
Yeah, I do find it really impressive when you have like a 22-year-old like CEO or something who are just really on it. Like they've just done their homework on like leadership, on who they are. Like they seem very sure and confident in themselves. And like, it doesn't put me off as them as a leader. It just makes me really impressed that fucking hell, I can't believe you figured this out and you're 22. Like I'm almost 40 and I'm still trying to figure out how this all works. It's sort of really impressive. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, definitely really impressive. And I just think it's important that that's considered, because also I think what can happen with leadership, and I feel like this gets talked about quite a lot, but people can be amazing at their job and so they're rewarded with a leadership position. And I think sometimes that's where things can go really wrong and like unfortunately can end not well for the person that's been rewarded. So I think it does just take that extra bit of awareness and like care from the people around people as well who are being put in those positions.
Like we've talked in the past about how actually like becoming more successful in your own career is not stepping into leadership just as a like seniority like step. It's like actually just being a really amazing software engineer or like whatever, like is actually like that is enough. Like you don't need to like take these different roles. Like because you become good at something doesn't mean you should then stop doing that and start leading people doing that. That's not necessarily the path you should carve.
Yeah, they're very different skill sets, aren't they? And yeah, we find it with engineers especially who are really strong individual contributors. If you then make them manage other people, you've just killed that. So it's very different.
Yeah, it's definitely a different skill set managing people. And if you don't want to manage people in the first place, it's not going to end well. Amazing. Okay, well, I think we are. Yeah, we're sort of coming to time. But yeah, Elysha, thank you so much for sort of coming on the podcast. And yeah, I think we could talk about this for ages. There's so many parts of this topic that I just find super interesting. So yeah, thank you for coming on. It's been lovely to meet you.
Thanks for having me. Good to chat.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hit subscribe for future Off Script podcast episodes in the future, and we'll see you next time. Bye.